All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers Virtual Connections. This is the 30th Virtual Connections session we've done since we started this in spring of 2020. We're excited to be able to bring the whole value of GCEC and having different Entrepreneurship Center people connecting with one another and sharing best practices in a way that we can all access without having to get on an airplane. So welcome to today's session. I do want to, well, first, my name is Jeff Reed. I'm the director of Georgetown Entrepreneurship and a longtime participant and board member at GCEC, and always excited to do these programs. This year, we're making some upgrades to our webinar series. We will continue to have some moderated panel discussions like we have today, but we're also going to do some networking and twist it around a little bit, right? We're trying some new things, and we will do these the final Friday of nearly every month, noon Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, just keep an eye on our newsletter to make sure you know what's going on and what's coming up. We do have most of the past sessions available on the website. Some of those early ones we lost to the Zoom recording expiration dates. That was my fault. But we've done a lot better job over the last 2 or 3 years of keeping and archiving the material you hear here. Our next session will be on March 22nd, and we're going to cover tech stacks at entrepreneur centers. I know that is a growing topic of lots of interest. So that's what's coming up. But other things you can do to stay connected to GCEC, you can see here everything from attending these virtual connections webinars, connecting through LinkedIn. I've seen some pretty robust discussions going on there. Checking out our newsletter, websites, the annual awards and the conference presentations are going to be coming up real soon, the applications for those. And then we have a brand new summer conference this year in Bangkok. So if you haven't booked your tickets yet, still not too late. All right. And then, of course, in the fall, we'll be meeting up at Babson in October. So we're looking forward to all these ways to connect with GCEC. Today, we're going to focus on a topic that is of interest to a great many of us, and that is around inclusive entrepreneurship. We have 3 amazing panelists who are going to share what they are doing around this topic. We hope to have a robust conversation with each of them and with our audience. We encourage audience members to post in the chat if you have questions or comments or links or suggestions. Our panelists are going to do their best to answer questions in the chat, and we'll also have time at the end today for more robust Q&A. All right, so with that, I am going to introduce our first panelist, who is Sega Todessa of the Dingman Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Maryland, right across the DC area from me. So over to you, Sega.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction. Hello, everybody. I look forward to sharing some of the insights here. If there are, and I'm also looking forward to sharing a toolkit, actually, based on the work that we've done. So I'm open to your reactions to this toolkit. Is this slide displaying? Does everybody see what I'm sharing?
Yes, you can see it.
Yep,
okay, perfect. Okay, great. So to start, my name is Agata Dessa. I'm the Director of Venture Development and Programs. So I oversee our 14 programs in our portfolio. And I'm lucky to work at the Dingman Center for Entrepreneurship that has been around for quite a long time. It's one of the older centers since 1989. The mission for the center is to educate, empower, and elevate students to be entrepreneurial. And one of the things that was really exciting for the center was a couple of years ago, the leadership and the board connected with faculty within the School of Business and assessed sort of what is the strategic trajectory for this center. And what you're seeing here is the evolution of that task force of faculty that assessed where does this center need to go in order for it to add value in the state of Maryland and also within the University of Maryland ecosystem. So there are 3 strategic pillars, and those strategic pillars are that the center is a knowledge hub for the university, but also the broader entrepreneurial community. We support student enterprise, which is the kind of heartbeat of what the center has done for quite some time. And then venture growth, which is looking at supporting growing ventures and enabling them to accelerate their growth. One of the really important aspects of the strategic plan is inclusive entrepreneurship. So it initially was slated as one of the pillars, but we started having conversation, and we're now looking at it really as a foundational element. And the idea is that these pillars, along with the foundation, hold up the TERP entrepreneurship ecosystem. TERP is our mascot. And so it's looking at the University of Maryland within that school, but then also the broader University of System Maryland as well. So what does that look like in action was the question that we asked ourselves. So we say it's a strategic foundational focus for the center, but what does that translate into? So we are now working on sort of these working draft of strategic OKRs that we're putting as targets or as North Stars to work towards. One being ensuring representation, specifically focusing on racial and gender minorities, particularly because of the underrepresentation in those populations within our entrepreneurial ecosystem, and then articulating and implementing practical program approaches for walking the walk of inclusion. So I'll talk a little bit more about both of these and then provide the toolkit that's related to the second OKR here. The draft OKR. The first element is that we have a variety of programs and events. So one of them being that we have a course that focuses on inclusive entrepreneurship, and it looks at diverse trajectories of entrepreneurial experience and on particularly looking at barriers that are common within the journey of the experiences of minorities that are going through entrepreneurship. And so that course is something that we had implemented as a women-only course, and we've now opened it up to other groups, but we focus on sort of the inclusion and the storytelling element to ensure that those elements of entrepreneurship are represented within the coursework. Other elements that we have, or events and programs that we have, are bringing dialogue around the topic of diversity and inclusion within the community and creating networking opportunities. We've also been fortunate enough to launch a 12-week program for high school students. And this is really looking at the systemic issue of the pipeline and the systemic barriers that students face or young people face in seeing themselves as entrepreneurs. So whether that be their own self-concept of whether entrepreneurship is possible for them or not really being exposed to the skills and mindsets. And so we've partnered with local actors, a local nonprofit and a student-led NGO to pilot this program. And it's been pretty interesting. It's with the Prince George's County High Schools. So we have quite a lot of racial minorities and gender minorities that are represented in that program. So we're learning a lot through that. But the heart of what I wanted to share with you and the toolkit that I would love to share with you and have your input on is related to the second OKR, which is to articulate and implement practical program approaches for walking the walk of inclusion. And so this really came from the conversation, both at past GCECs, Deshpande, but also within our own ecosystem. There's a lot of really good intention around inclusion and equity, but how do you translate that into action? What does it look like? And what are the tactical, practical things that you could do? So this resource was developed based on that, and it comes from some of my past experience working within sort of the nonprofit and education space globally, internationally, and then also looking at some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion thinking and resources that are available within the University of Maryland. So you can actually access that. I've put the QR code here. I'll display the QR code at a later time too, so you can take a quick look. I'll walk through it a little bit. And so the idea is that this is a program framework for walking the walk of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at every phase of a program cycle. And this could be for any type of program that you're doing. The anchor for that is that we prioritize intersectional diversity and representation. So looking at the overlapping challenges that different identity types, so gender overlapping with race might have, recognizing the difference of experience around that. Empowered inclusion, meaning the individual that's invited to the table is not just sitting at the table, that they have a voice, they have agency and influence to shape decisions. Long-term commitment to building more equitable systems. I referred to the 12-week program that's looking at what are the systemic barriers that are hindering access and opportunity within entrepreneurship, or access to wealth generation within entrepreneurship. And so thinking about what are the solutions long-term. Cultivating brave spaces for belonging, which is ensuring that the norms of engagement and the interpersonal engagements are safe, but also brave, that we can challenge each other. And so we do some activities as part of our accelerator, as part of our different cohort style programs to cultivate that. And then really recognition of humility, recognizing that we are learning and we are not going to know or do all the things in the right way when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we need to partner with the people that are in the local communities. I mentioned local partnerships, student leadership within our program partnerships. So walking into this work with a sense of humility that we can continue to learn and reflect, but also learn from others, and being very transparent about that. So with that in mind, and with that note, I want to share with you something that is in working draft, meaning, we're entrepreneurial, we put it into practice, we're using it, but we know it's not perfect. We're going through an ongoing continuous learning. So this is sort of a play-by-play of before, during, and after program implementation. So at each stage, there are strategies that can be put in place to ensure inclusion, diversity, and equity at those stages. So before, it refers to program design, recruitment, intentionality around that, consistency and strategy around that, fair and equitable selection. What's happening in your judging room? Who's at the judging room table? Are you bringing forth a conversation about what kind of biases influencing those decisions? So just to highlight a few here from the before side, co-creation is an important one, where we've been able to engage students not only to give feedback, but also to invite them to co-create. So for example, we have a new program that we're launching called Spark. Well, it's Spark 3.0. Holly used to be part of this, my center, so she knows the old Spark. But co-create, meaning we're providing grants for students actually to run programs and events themselves, for those that are earlier on, that are curious about entrepreneurship, but are not yet transitioning into, have an idea or work on a business. So we're partnering with these student groups and allowing them to create events in whatever inspires them. So they could put on a hackathon, they could put on a performance event with some outcomes that we align with them on. So that idea of co-creation, and that goes back to what I was saying around empowered inclusion. So we're targeting some of the Black BSU, Black student groups, Latinx groups. And so really looking at how do we meet students where they are and allow them to translate entrepreneurship into their world in the language and then the experience that it makes sense to them. So that's one thing I wanted to highlight related to before, but there are other strategies as well. And then moving forward, I wanted to highlight for you kind of another element of the before. So we, in the summer, went through sort of I have only 2 minutes, so I'm going to go quickly, but we went through a summer kind of customer discovery. So we did 25 interviews of students And then we identified 4 types of Dingman personas, students at different stages of entrepreneurship. And then we developed this persona. And then the persona is now shaping our program design. So we're now really tuned into what is it that students are needing, what's motivating them, and why are they coming to us? And so that's another element of the before stage. We're being student responsive in our design, and we're really discovering where they're at in order to shape programs in a more impactful way. So that just gives you another flavor. It has sort of their needs, their challenges, as well as specific outcomes that we're focused on achieving for them in order to move them or to graduate them from somebody who's curious into somebody who can have an idea, for example. Next is the during phase. So just to give you a flavor, I already mentioned the brave space norms, but there are other strategies in mind here. And then there's the after evaluation and continuous learning stage. So for the after phase, I wanted to share with you, we identified some data that we're capturing across our programs. And then we're holding ourselves accountable based on the data. Do we have representation in our programs? And we were lucky enough that our university ecosystem was able to and the University System Maryland was able to align around this data. And so we can look across the various centers. So this is, another aspect at the after stage. Are we standardizing demographic identifiers, collecting that information, and then assessing where we stand in terms of our inclusion goals? Are we making progress, or are we staying in the same place? So that's just to give you sort of a flavor of what this framework has and what some of the thinking and the work that we've done around it. And I'd love, for those of you that are interested to take a look and to share your feedback or your reflection or your insights around this. And that's all from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sega. This is great. I love the personas. I know we could dig deeper, and you do have a question or two coming in through the chat. In the interest of time, I'm going to move to our next panelist, but I do have a lot of questions, so maybe we'll have time at the end to come back. But thanks for sharing that. It's really, really impressive. Always good to see new sparks coming around. Excellent. So next up, we have Natasha Fernandez from St. Mary's. Natasha, over to you.
Awesome. I'm going to quickly share my screen and then let me know if the full screen's visible. Is this good?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, great. But before I start I'm just so happy to notice that this is like an all-woman panel. So that's an amazing thing to celebrate as well. So I'm honored to be here. And yeah, I'm the project manager at the Arthur L. Irvin Entrepreneurship Center. And we run a program called the TD Inclusion Entrepreneurship Initiative. And so we just recently launched that in Jan 2023. And so the main purpose of the event was of this program is to amplify our support of diverse student entrepreneurs, by advancing their entrepreneurial mindset. And this word I'll be mentioning a lot throughout the presentation, but also innovating our business models and testing how our current improved solutions adhere to our market needs. So you can look at this program as sort of like an umbrella that covers 3 key projects. So we have the Ignition program, we have the Study and Stay Entrepreneurial Bootcamp, which is also called as the Summer Entrepreneurial Bootcamp, and the DEIB partnerships that we do with and events that we do under this project. So even just as a whole, this program came from the realization that even though we were not doing very diverse, specific stuff, just unconsciously, we noticed one day that our event just had an all diverse panel or an all diverse selection of topics, and we realized, wow, we're doing this already unconsciously, what if we actually made the effort to really zone in and consciously make the choices to increase our inclusion, to increase our diversity, to make our programming more inclusive? And that's how this project started coming to life, was the idea to make it more of a conscious effort. So the first project that does come under this umbrella is the Ignition program. And I want to talk a bit about this program because we've been running it for the past 3 to 4 years now. And it's a completely virtual program. It runs for 10 weeks. And to put it in one word, it is basically an entrepreneurial toolbox. So in that 10-week program, we cover different topics. But this year, we cover topics such as how to write a business plan, Black entrepreneurship resources, how to pitch, and topics like that students from any background or skill base can learn from. And we give them training and mentorship so students can, we aim to equip the students with a well-rounded skill set that just goes beyond the academic knowledge. So we foster that entrepreneurial mindset that I will mention. And we also give them the opportunity to have connections, coaching and consulting. So it's a support system that goes through so that students can receive guidance and assistance and accountability for achieving their personal goals. And I think the best part about this program also is the fact that we do pay our students. So one thing I always like to ask before we make any program is, would I want to be part of this program? What do I earn? What do I get from this program? It could be something as simple as just earning a side income too. So our students gain not just the fact that they can build their business or build their idea or build their entrepreneurial mindset, but can also earn $20 as each session they attend. So in that span of 4 months, they can earn an income of like $200 to $300, right? By just attending that 1-hour session. The other program that we do during the summer is the Summer Entrepreneurial Bootcamp. So it is in partnership with EduNova, which runs the Study and Stay program that is exclusive for international students. So this is a program that allows students to come and learn the skills that they would need to require to study and stay and build their business here, right? So what are the skills that students that come from different countries can then build their own business here in Canada? So we do offer, of course, $20,000 in prize money, and it starts with a virtual program that we do install like milestones for the students to achieve in that virtual program through their attendance. And then once they do achieve certain milestones, we all gather for an in-person competition. So we sometimes fly people from, or we allow people to come from like different Atlantic universities, and they can then pitch the idea that they've been building throughout the virtual program section of the bootcamp, and then win a prize. So it is open to international students that study at a Nova Scotian post-secondary institution or at an Atlantic Canadian university. And so through these DIB events and partnerships, this was one of the events that we did, which was the launch of the Atlantic Black Knowledge Hub. And it was an amazing event, one of the highlights, because we had live music and jazz, and it really brought our space to life, which I think we try to do now with any events that we bring up at our space. We want it to breathe life into the space and to celebrate the different our differences and our similarities. So we do a couple of these events that bring together speakers from different backgrounds at one space. And we also do at this event, we also highlighted our student entrepreneurs. So we had booths situated around the space so students could flaunt their business and share their achievements with the people in attendance. So our key partners during this initiative is, of course, Flint Business Hub, York University, Black Women in Excellence, Tribe Network, and many, many more that would take me an hour to note all of them. So the framework that we do sort of follow is at any base framework, we do know that there's, of course, theoretical and practical development that we always want to keep in as a foundation. But one thing I have realized when I have met and engaged with so many of our partners and diverse individuals is to the 3 S's, right? So the first is to keep anything simple and straightforward. So that's something that often we sometimes forget to just, can we explain this program, or can we explain this framework to, someone who is just very new to this, or a student? So that's keeping it simple and straightforward. Storytelling. Is there a piece of you in this program, right? Do you see being a part of this? And the last one is being a support system. And this support system is not just building a good entrepreneurial ecosystem, but also allowing people other than you to be on the stage front, right? To be sharing, giving them the spotlight, giving them the initiative, whether they fall or whether they succeed, giving them that platform to share their stories, and then therein they become that support system for you. So building that good entrepreneurial ecosystem that relies on a healthy and diverse support system. And one of the barriers that we do realize that stems from inclusive entrepreneurship is this narrow view that entrepreneurship is only about tech, capital, profit, individual achievement, which all of that is true. It is true in many ways, and that's what makes entrepreneurship what it is. But it's also the essence of it being that it cultivates this entrepreneurial mindset that allows us to push our boundaries, that allows us to not think in one line, but through how we can accept all of these different perspectives and make them better. And something that it reminds me, I had this conversation once with Evan, who is an Indigenous leader at our space, and he had told me that the way the Indigenous community looks at entrepreneurship is so different from the way we look at it, because we have this set way of things that we want to do, and we put that on the students and say, like, this is what you should be doing. Or if you want to achieve something, this is like a set way to do it. But they look at the nature, and nature teaches them. Their surrounding nature teaches them on how to build their community, on how to build their business, on how to build each other. So it kind of gets me to that point of that controversial opinion that I don't know many would agree, but it's sometimes we get into that vice of thinking outside the box, of thinking of new solutions, that we forget to improve and constantly evolve our current amazing thinking outside the box solutions that we've already come with. So our breakthrough ideas that we sometimes have just once end up just staying stagnant, because we are in the pursuit of constantly evolving something new for the diverse community, instead of evolving already our current things that include our diverse communities in our mind, right? So I'm going to quickly share this new program and this is the last slide. So finishing it up really quick, but this is still a pilot program that we are still trying to get funding for, and that we've just applied to get funding for. But it's called the Inclusive Innovators Program. And this is from an existing program that has already existed, but we have thought of evolving it and making it more inclusive. So it's going to be basically experiential learning workshops that we do one every 4 months, so one in the spring, summer, and fall. And we bring in diverse BIPOC-owned companies who come to our space in person, and we have all our students there, and they say, this is the problem I'm facing, tell me how to solve it. So students will form little groups, they'll engage with each other, they'll come up with a good solution that they think would solve this problem for the owner, for the business, and then they'll compete with each other. And then depending on the business owner, he'll say, okay, this idea suited best for my company. So this sort of gives the platform for us to engage with more diverse-led businesses, and also allow the students to have these different perspectives, and bring that solution to the platform, and see if it's actually making that real world impact, because this business will take that solution and actually use it in their real world business, in their actual business, to increase their growth, right? And then we also have the second component of this program, which is the diverse leadership role. It's a little, I'm hoping I get a better title. So if you have some suggestions, please do let me know. But basically, the role will just be, we will pay a 10,000 honorarium for 1 DLR per year. And this DLR will then offer, office hours, the one-on-one mentorship and training. And this would also allow for this greater student-mentor interactions, which can build this inclusive community of just experienced and emerging leaders fusing together and complementing each other. So that is where we are trying to aim for the inception of this program. And of course, I am more than willing to hear your thoughts and your feedback on this as well, because this is something that is still in rough and still in the draft. So yeah, the main aim is to if you have this breakout idea, you evolve it into something even greater, something even more approachable, simple, which has a piece of you in it, and is built surrounded by this healthy, diverse, and support system. So yeah, that's me. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natasha. I think you hit on such an important part of the challenge here, is that sometimes our students or other constituents have a narrow definition of what entrepreneurship is, and helping people see themselves in the world that we're working in is really, really important. And I love the fact that you found a way to pay students $20 for attending the session. I'd love to learn more about that. So maybe we'll have time to talk about that soon.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so our third panelist comes to us from the Cleveland area, Case Western Reserve University, Mindy Bile. Over to you, Mindy. Oh, you've got a busy calendar there. And you're still muted too.
My touch screen was not cooperating. Thank you, everyone, for those of you attending, and for GCEC inviting Case Western to present. I'm already learning a lot. I was taking copious notes. There's just so much good stuff going on. I really look forward to having follow-on discussions. Case Western Reserve University has an entrepreneurship center. It's the Veal Institute for Entrepreneurship. We are 5 years young, so we're very early in our journey. We report up to the provost for some context, so we're not sitting in a business school or in an engineering school. We do represent all 8 of our schools. We're a private R1 research university, and we have roughly 12,000 students, almost equally split between graduate and undergraduate. When we look at inclusivity in our programming, we start with, what's our why? Why do we want to be inclusive? And we are, as a team, and there's 8 of us on the team, are very much believers in the fact that entrepreneurship's a viable career path. 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't talked about as readily, but now students, parents of students, and the broader economic development system is much more interested in entrepreneurship as a viable career path. We also understand that for those that go through the entrepreneurial journey on campus and choose to go to med school, to become a lawyer, to work for a larger corporation, to become an accountant or a consultant, that the skill sets that they're developing through their entrepreneurial experience are in high demand. They're very much those elusive soft skills that the larger companies very, very much want their graduates to have. So that's part of our why, right? We really, truly, fundamentally believe that there's such richness in entrepreneurship for career development that we want to be part of it. When we look at our student body, and this is the entire university, the numbers differ a little undergrad versus graduate, but essentially 39% of our students are minorities, and that includes our international students. And 41% of our students are women. And when we look at the broader entrepreneurial landscape, and we look at funding, where people are willing to bet by writing a check and make investments, there's this huge disconnect, right? 2%, actually it's less now, it's 1.9. The VC funding goes to women or minority founders. So we look at it both, you know, a long-term game, what can we do to change this? And a short-term game, you know, what can we do to change this, right? So in the long term, it's about focusing on our students and education and giving them a seat at the table. In the short term, it's about ways to make step function improvement in that process. So if you look at what we do today, and this isn't dissimilar, I think, from a lot of centers, right? So we have speaker series where we bring entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs in to talk a little bit about their entrepreneurial journey. We have skills labs, which are hosted both in the fall and in the spring. It's a series of workshops that we all know the entrepreneurial journey is not linear, but we pretend that it is, and we walk through sort of the order in which, you know, you would need to acquire some skills, starting with customer and needs assessment and working your way through to incorporating and securing funding. We have some funds available. We have a student entrepreneurship fund where we award up to 30 students up to $1,000 each for entrepreneurial activities to help them sort of as an individual or with a team experiment a little bit. We have a series of fellowships. We have our Veal Snyder Fellows, which are students. We have our Veal Faculty Fellows, which as the name implies, our faculty. Both are cohort programs. There are workshops and educational elements to it. There are investments either in travel and programming or seed funding that are part of it. We have an Entrepreneur in Residence program. These are connecting entrepreneurs from our community, from our alumni, from outside either of those to bring their expertise on campus in ways that help our student faculty or alumni ventures grow. We do have a startup competition every spring. Premier event happens in April. And we also just launched last year an alumni venture fund that's nonprofit. We're bringing gifts into the university and then making investments into faculty, student, or alumni startups for a return. So it's for equity, but that comes back as a philanthropic gift. So if we think about what we're doing today, and the reason I drew the huge, you know, box around the students, faculty, and alumni is because it's really important to think about who the individual people we're building these programs for, right? As much as it is to think about the journey, the exploring, the building, you know, and the growing, you know, their ventures, right? And we do that. We talk a lot internally. We laugh about like, what's our superpower, right? And we really feel like we have three. One is we are a huge believer in connections, building out a network and openly sharing our network with any of our entrepreneurial students that are interested. The second thing we believe is to put students at the center. And interestingly enough, and as was discussed earlier, it isn't always building a workshop or a program for students to attend. Sometimes it's asking students to come sit at the table and help with development. Sometimes it's acquiring a skill that may or may not be related. Or I'll give you a simple example, our speaker series. We host at least once a week a speaker series. They're hybrid, they're streamed on LinkedIn. We intentionally put a student in the middle. We don't facilitate. We have our students facilitating. So they are driving the topic, they are driving the tone, they are asking the questions, they're ensuring that the audience can participate and ask questions too. And it's a unique and different way for them to build confidence and for them to connect in a less passive way for something that could otherwise be construed as passive, like a speaker series, you know, sit back and listen. So we put our students at the center of everything we do. And then the third thing is when we look at our programming, it's very experiential in nature, right? By putting students in the center in part. So it's not, entrepreneurship's a team sport and it's a demanding journey, right? As we all know. And so you do need support. You do need a network, but you also need experience, right? So it's one thing to hear about customer discovery. It's another thing to try and make an appointment and sit in front of somebody and not sell your product and idea, but try and uncover their needs, right? Some of these skill sets that make you successful need to be experienced in order to improve and increase chances of success. So we work on our connections, we put students in the middle, and we do experience. That's some of the what we do. So how are we inclusive in doing that? And I would say, the first thing we strongly believe in, and you can say it either be it, see it, or see it, be it, but our students desperately need to see themselves reflected in what we do. And it's so much more than this lovely picture that I have on the slide here, showing the diversity across campus of students participating in our events. It's being very intentional. When we sign up speakers for our speaker series, we're very intentional about moderating or curating, I guess I should say, who speaks when, right? So students don't wait 6 months to see someone who might look like them, on camera being, interviewed. We make sure in our marketing messages that we are letting our students tell their own stories. For example, the woman who's in the middle of the frame in the black and white, top, she's delightful. She's in a really tough place from a business standpoint, and that's hardware. She works on drones, and she's pivoting a little bit to train drone pilots. We could tell her story for her. We could write an article. We could create, a LinkedIn profile and put it up. But this is a still frame of a video interview. And this is part of our standard practices where we go out and we interview our founders, all of our diverse founders, right, in all of their richness to tell the story in their own way. And then we post those kinds of stories, right? So we're trying to avoid the bias in the way we might want to curate the story, right? And let them tell the stories the way they have passion around. So you need to see it, to be it. We believe firmly in that. I talked earlier about the fact that, you need to walk the talk. And so for students, it's not sitting passive in a classroom or doing homework assignments. It's really sweating out the details. It's trying to get in front of customers. It's trying to figure out that prototype. It's failing and being okay with failing, in a relatively safe space. And then the third thing that we do to be inclusive is we really work to collaborate. So let's meet people where they are. And I'll give you some simple examples and some less obvious examples. We have, like most centers, a pipeline, right? And we're trying to fill our pipeline. So we want more students engaging in the lower risk activities so they can experience entrepreneurship in a safe space and in a fun way. And then they can continue the journey if they feel it's for them. But rather than knock on the door of, let's say, NSBE, which is a National Society for Black Engineers, and say, hey, we're hosting this event. Will you please promote it with your members? We may reach out to them and say, hey, we know it's really important to be able to effectively introduce yourself. And making introductions when it comes to interviews or career fairs really isn't different than a pitch. We have a process for the pitch. Can we have 15 minutes on the agenda and we'll share with you how to do a pitch and practice it a little bit so your members walk away with something of value. And then we can do the 30-second commercial. Here's some of the events. Come join us. We'd love to have you participate. Or if we take something like we're doing one this weekend. We have our crew hack team is putting on a hackathon, and we're doing not only a live workshop, but we have skin in the game. If they want to give out a prize, then we're going to help fund half the prize. If we look at the School of Medicine, where there are a number of programs that are entrepreneurial, they're not necessarily venture creation yet, but they want their med students thinking about improvements in healthcare, whether it be processes, device, therapeutics. And so in collaborating with the med school, we bring speakers into their classroom and talk about what that journey looks like. Hey, I was a doctor, now I'm an entrepreneur. What does that look like? So we look for those ways to collaborate and meet people where they are, striving always to be really very, very intentional about what it is that we do. Now, for us, one of the things that we're learning, because again, I think we're really early in our journey, we have more questions and challenges than we have answers. So I thought I would share some of the things that we struggle with, and maybe it'll seed some of the conversation, or we can have some follow-up discussions. But we struggle with a number of things. As I mentioned early on, venture funding, right? So ethically, how do you bring this inclusive group, through this awesome journey and learn the skills to become an entrepreneur, learn the skills where they can transfer that into a career, non-entrepreneurial if they choose. But if they choose to be an entrepreneur, they get to the point that they want to incorporate, they get to the point that they want to pitch a VC, they do a couple of Googles and they say, holy cow, 2% or less of the funding goes to someone who looks like me. It's very discouraging. It's very disheartening. So we don't have all the answers yet, but we have to figure out a way to curate a higher success rate for getting funding for those that want to do that. And that includes seed funding. One of the biggest challenges that we see, if your lived experience isn't a life of privilege, you don't have friends and family that are going to help you out in the friends and family round. And the VCs are all going, hey, go for friends and family. And, you end up sitting going, all right, how do I find, a friend who has friends and family that have deeper pockets, right? So I don't know how to crack that nut, but that is something that we're struggling with. Our campus being a research university, the engineers find us pretty readily, the med students, some of the business students, because we have an entrepreneurship curriculum, but the creatives, right? The musicians, the performers, the artists, those that have way more talent than I have, knitting really cool stuff to put on Etsy. We're having a hard time finding them. And some of that's language. They don't identify necessarily as an entrepreneur. They're a creative, or they got a side gig, or they got a hustle, or they're just doing it for extra money. So we do want to work to connect with creatives. Our location, interestingly enough, in two respects. One, when you think entrepreneurship, startup funds, huge startup community, you don't necessarily think Cleveland, Ohio. Doesn't mean there isn't a lot going on, but it's not Boston. It's not LA. It's not, San Francisco. It's not Austin, Texas, right? So we have to work a little bit harder to get further off campus to get the kind of funds and attention that the big VCs or investors are going to look for. The other issue with the location is we're in an awesome 50,000 square foot makerspace, the largest in the country, open to the community. So we have community members coming and going all the time, which is amazing. But we're located sort of on the edge of campus, and we're located on the edge of campus way far away in an engineering corner. So again, when you're trying to reach the arts and sciences and the creatives and the med school, they're all on the other side of campus. And you wouldn't think a mere, busy street, and maybe a 20-minute walk would make a difference, but it makes a difference, right? So we have to juggle with how do we make our program more inclusive by, looking for other spaces to be present in. Language, as I mentioned, are we entrepreneurs? Are we innovators? Are we creatives? Are we designers? Are we all of that? That makes a difference. And last but not least, we're struggling with a good chunk of our students are global and they're entrepreneurial. And most of what we're teaching, sharing, networking in and around is US centric. And they want to go home and build their business somewhere else. So how do we help them succeed, across national boundaries? So those are the things we're struggling with. I wish I had answers. If you do, please, by all means, reach out. We'd love to talk, more about it. But it was easier to come up with what we're struggling with than to highlight, some of the work we're doing. Again, probably because we're early on in our journey. So appreciate everybody.
This is great. Thank you. You're doing great work, and I also very much appreciate, acknowledging where you're a little bit of vulnerability, right? That's part of growing and being inclusive, is showing people that we don't all have all the answers. So thanks for that, and thanks to all our panelists. Now in the next 5 minutes, we're going to give all the answers. I'll ask one question of our three panelists, and anybody can jump in first if they'd like. And the question, we heard a common theme, or I heard a common theme there, that all three of you, and we're doing this at Georgetown as well, is giving our students a chance to co-create, right? Giving the students a chance to design things. And I have certainly seen and experienced that what they come up with is different than what I would have come up with, or what we had always done in the past, right? So it's cool to see new things. Do you have any experiences where it didn't work, right? Where students came up with something, you gave it a try, and man, that was not good, and or just any advice around kind of how to mitigate the potential kind of pitfalls there of doing new and different things. And anybody can jump in first based on whoever wants to. Or I can cold call.
I'll volunteer because we've been very experimental. I'll use our EIR program, I think, as an example, our entrepreneurship program. As I mentioned, we're about 5 years young. We've gone through, I think we're on our 4th iteration of EIR program. And by that, I don't mean 4th cohort of EIRs we're bringing in. We keep changing what we're doing because we keep missing the mark. And students were very vocal early on. We really want to connect with these entrepreneurs. We really want to connect with experts. We want their advice as we go through our journey, right, to help us with our specific business, not necessarily general career information, but specific business. So in the beginning, we ran out, and this predates me joining the group, but we ran out and we tapped our network, and we had like 10 EIRs, and we paid them a stipend. I think it was roughly about $1,000, but don't hold me to that. And waited, created forums, looked for ways to connect them with the students. I don't know where all the students went, but we had a lot of entrepreneurs, and we had students, but they were not connecting and engaging in the way we had. So the EIRs ended up in many respects underutilized. Now we pulled them into the university for other things, but underutilized from a student perspective. And I think our learning there was sometimes students don't always know what they need, or they don't articulate it in a way that we hear them. Right. So I think what they really wanted was the career advice and the mentoring and what we do in our speaker series, much more so than I'm going to commit to sitting down and being ready with my questions or my assumptions or where I'm struggling in my business, journey.
That's a good one. You provide those mentors, but students feel like they have to have done all their homework before they even talk to the mentor. And that's not what your expectations are, but the students often feel like they're, we've seen that too.
Exactly.
Anybody else have an example of something that just didn't work?
I can share. So I had mentioned a 12-week program focused on high school students. So it's in the pilot year, and as pilots go, lots of things go wrong. So the way we structured that program was we identified college students to be the trainers, because we wanted it to be co-creative. We wanted it to be, as a high school student, you're not intimidated by the person in the front of the room. You actually can relate. They're closer to you in age, and they're entrepreneurial. So we were envisioning that it's a sort of role model that it's sort of what Mindy was saying earlier, you see it, you believe it type of experience, right? And what we found was that it's kind of a mixed bag, right? Some of the students are comfortable in front of the room training other high school students, and then others are very intimidated. They need much more clarity around both the material and the process and all of that stuff. So at the same time, I think there was magic in there where some of the assumptions we made were coming to fruition, where having somebody so close to your age and is entrepreneurial is pretty powerful for the high school students. So I think we're working out the kinks of how do you prepare students who have never taught, who have never trained, or have not, some of them don't even have a lot of public speaking experience in front of a room. How do you prepare students to be the experts, right, of entrepreneurship? With age appropriate materials, we had 2 partners on this program, one which is a student-led nonprofit, and another which was Junior Achievement, which is a local, it's a national organization that has entrepreneurial content. But so our team is going to reflect on how the pilot went, and we're probably going to make a bunch of changes, including maybe a more intensive training. And we have a weekly check-in with the trainers where we prepare them, but you don't know exactly what's needed in that until you see it come to life.
All right, we're almost out of time. Natasha, did you have anything you wanted to share, maybe real quick?
very quickly, we were actually supposed to do this student-led workshops that once we had a new building, we thought, oh, let's do some new programming. Let's really hone in on students and see how we can bring them to the platform. But we didn't get much response from there because I think we realized that students don't like to be excluded in that way. So we sort of then, which brought me back to that point of, evolving already the current amazing programs that we have. So then with Ignition that we've already been running so much, and now we've evolved it into being more diverse and more inclusive in its framework, we decided then to invite these students to, come forward and be as speakers, and we treat them the same way we would treat any other speaker. Pay them the $250 honorarium, give them the platform to share their business and tailor a topic that they would be an expert on. And we then sort of realized that now we're having this younger generation of speakers, which is great because we were reusing the same old speakers again and again. And students, although they do want to learn from experienced individuals, they also want to learn from experiences that they can relate to, people that are going through the same things that they are. And we had such a good feedback and outpour of students that were interested in this as well, that then we decided that, okay, from moving forward, we will sprinkle them in with already our experienced leaders and emerging ones, so that creates that good ecosystem, right, of that synergy between your experienced leaders and your emerging leaders. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time. This is great. I want to thank all of our panelists, Sega, Natasha, and Mindy. You guys, you ladies shared some great info, started some great conversations. I look forward to digging in to learn more about what you are up to. So thanks for doing all that. Now for some closing comments, our wonderful leader, GCEC Director, Holly D. Arman. Go, take it over, Holly.
Yeah, very quickly. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks to Jeff and the panelists for having such a great session. And always thank you to Nadine Bentus, who organizes us all. Just a quick shout out. You should be receiving Slack invitations from me. We hope that the Slack community, we can continue this conversation there. So as you receive those from me, I'm doing about 100 a day to get them out. Please accept them and join us on Slack. And like Jeff said in the beginning, engage in our global summit this summer in Bangkok, engage in our Babson conference we have coming up in the fall, and please continue to join us for these virtual connections. And thank you all, and have a great Friday. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the Slack channel is a great way to keep these conversations going. So I'm looking forward to engaging more there. Thanks, everybody. Great work.